who is my guest for this segment, who knows a lot about rock and roll. He plays in a rock and roll band called E.M. Spencer, and of course runs the beautiful Strathmore facility, and for many years at the Meyer office. He's been my friend for 2 decades. He is our Oriole historian and correspondent, as well as a, bleeding heart rock and roll fan. You would agree with that, right, Alan McCallum?
Yeah, that's definitely an accurate assessment, yes. Rock and roll, folk, jazz, you name it. There's a lot of good stuff out there.
Well, yeah, I did a little bit of that. I did like John Denver last week, and there's a little folk thing going on there for you. But we're back to baseball now, Alan. And the one thing, take a couple of weeks off. I've watched a lot of baseball. All-Star games come and gone now. This is really rarefied air for the Orioles to be in first place, but it's also very, very precarious right now when you see them sort of, in desperation go to Dylan Bundy, see him go 70 pitches, not really looking like a starting pitcher, not yet anyway. They don't want to tax his arm at any point this season. But I don't know exactly where the Orioles are, but I know they're headed to New York, and I know they're in first place, and I know they can really, really put the Yankees on watch for this, trading that they're allegedly going to be doing in the next 10 days, right?
Well, I mean, there are a few things in that. I mean, first off, just taking a look at the Orioles in first place and what that's a testament to, I think it's a testament to a few things. That there's certainly talent, both offensive and defensive talent on this club. The bullpen, the back end of the bullpen is one of the best in the game. It's a testament to Buck Showalter and his ability to sort of maneuver around weaknesses that the team clearly has. And just that, as flawed as the Orioles are, there are a lot of clubs that are equally or more or flawed more so. Now, the beginning of what we've talked about for a while has happened, where the Red Sox, with the best farm system in the division and certainly one of the best in the game, David Ortiz's final season, young guys that are performing, but they have some veteran presence to help augment that maturation process. They're going for it, and they've gone out and made some deals. One to address an injury with Kimbrel, one to deepen the offense, going out and getting Hill from the Arizona Diamondbacks, and then and certainly going out and getting Drew Pomeranz. I think I've said to you for a while that as weak as their starting pitching was, they were in the best position in the division to go out and strengthen that. It frankly wouldn't surprise me if they make another move at some point before the trade deadline. So the pressure is mounting. Let's certainly say that. The Red Sox trying to heal some of their weaknesses, and again are certainly in the best position of any team in the division to do so. And the Blue Jays have been, they've got off to a slow start, and they've done what they've done pretty much every year for the last 3 or 4 years, not including last season, where they get hot and are unstoppable for a little while, and they fall back again. They sort of ride that roller coaster. I don't know, unless they make a trade that they're really, I don't know. I guess some people would tell you that they're probably the most balanced club already, and maybe that's true. But there's just something about them that's missing again this season that wasn't last year. But the Red Sox are putting the full court press on here, and to imagine that the Orioles with is questionable starting pitching as they have can hold that off, it's going to be interesting. Let's put it that way. You saw,
whether Dylan Bundy's that answer or not, I mean, it doesn't appear to me, and I know we're 3 1/3 innings into this experiment. There's nothing on Sunday that screamed to me, well, there's the answer.
So Dylan Bundy makes his first start, and I mean, you said Dylan Bundy looked like the majority of young starters that come up. Great stuff, pumping 98-mile-an-hour fastballs. I mean, he gave up 3 home runs, and all of them almost without fail were in the 97 to 98 range, right down the middle or maybe just off the middle, where good hitters in the major leagues can take those balls for a ride. Where in the minor leagues and in college or high school or what have you, those balls go right by hitters, and they're looking at like, how did I didn't even see that. I mean, Dylan on the occasion of his first start looked like a lot of them. I'm sure there were some nerves involved. I'm sure he was pumped up, but changing speeds, movement, all of those things come into play. He wasn't horrible, but he certainly put his team behind on a day that Jake Odorizzi was just better. So, do I think he's the answer? 2017, he might be. I don't think that going out and giving 4 1/3 or 5 innings on a regular basis for the Orioles is what they need right now. And Dan Duquette, not having gone out and accomplished in any way, shape, or form the number one priority he said he had prior to spring training, has put the team behind the eight ball in terms of a lack of starting pitching and releasing guys that could help.
Well, they were hoping for a miracle, right? They were hoping that Tyler Wright or Tyler Wilson or Mike Wright were the next Wei and Chen, right?
And if they had Tyler Wright, they'd probably be right because
that's right.
Wilson has the feel for pitching and Wright's got the arm.
That's not wrong.
But the two of them separately each lack the ingredient that the other has. They put themselves behind the eight ball, and
that may have been Freudian, Alan.
And now they are going to have to do to get somebody remove yet another piece out of an already sort of diminished minor league system to get something that they probably could have gotten for on the cheap in the off season, because they're not going to trade for a David Price type. First of all, I don't know that any of them are frankly out there. And secondly, they don't have enough to get them anyway. So they're going to go get a Jeremy Hellickson, a Doug Fister, a Rich Hill, someone who's having either a workman-like season or a surprising season, and they're going to give up one big piece to get them because that's all they'll be worth. And it's the exact kind of player that they could have gone out and gotten for nothing, or for a few $1 million here and there that they didn't spend in the off season. And then we'll see.
Well, they spent a few $1 million in the offseason on Gallardo, right? Period.
Gallardo and Davis. I'm not saying they didn't do anything. What I'm saying is that his number one priority, the thing that he talked about from before the season ended in 2015 through the winter meetings and all of the talk, what Duquette identified as their number one issue was improving the starting rotation. And they lost two big pieces out of it, and they got Gallardo. And I will say again, I was in favor of getting him, although Doug Fister would have been my first choice for what they were going to spend. And retaining Wei and Chen would also have been my first choice, part of the first choice. And they did neither of those things. And it is, again, an incredibly impressive situation that this team with the second worst starting pitching in the American League is in first place, still 2 games up in the division. It's just an impressive feat, and it speaks to the talent that they have on the club and Buck Showalter's ability to manage and the flaws and foibles of the other teams they're competing against in the American League East.
Alan McCallum talking all things Orioles baseball as the Orioles now approach the Yankees, and we'll talk about the trading deadline in regard to the Yankees and where they are. Alan, is there anything to discuss with the Yankees as far as really being a team that's going to play in October at this point? Or are you of the mindset that they must be making deals during the next 10 days?
Must is an interesting word. I don't think the Yankees must do anything. I mean,
okay, fair enough.
They certainly have enough world championships that while their fans will be impatient, they're not going to rebel. But we've all heard the talk about the dissension. The owners want them to add, and the general manager Brian Cashman wants to make some trades, and I certainly think Cashman is more right than the other. But in terms of the Yankees getting to the postseason, the only thing that could happen is them playing spoiler in August and September and knocking some teams down, because that team's not going to the postseason. It's not going to happen. It is hard to imagine the Orioles, Yankees, and Blue Jays collapsing to and the Yankees being capable of getting hot enough or making enough deals to bring in enough of talent to address the issues that they have to really make a run. Now, if one of the 3 teams in question, goes through a rash of injuries, and I guess that's possible, in theory, the Yankees could get hot and sneak in. It's not mathematically impossible yet, but being able to conceive of that happening right now is just not something I can do.
All right, so for them, for their fan base, if you're doing sports radio in New York right now, what are you saying? Sell, buy, trade, hang in? I would be the first guy, and we're going to watch them for the next 4 days. And by the way, Alan, I watched them most of the weekend. They were on national television Saturday afternoon. They were on ESPN on Sunday night. I think it's great news that they're going to skip Tanaka this go-round for the Orioles. And I saw David Price come out, and, the money they spent on him. I look at the Yankees and I say, if you're ever going to bust it up, this has to be the year. And I've said this already a few times today. I don't see people trading their pinstripes in or burning their hats because the Yankees want to load up and get rid of 3 or 4 of these guys and bring in 6 or 8 prospects.
Well, if I'm any of the people that you talked about, a talk show host, a columnist, a fan, I'm saying trade whatever you can. Now, the reality is the Yankees have a lot of old, expensive ball players that nobody wants. So you can't trade a ton, but you can trade Aroldis Chapman to a number of teams that could use a big-time closer in the back end to make a stretch run. You can trade Carlos Beltran probably to an American League team who needs a big bat in the middle of the lineup to get things going. I mean, those things are certainly possible. Those are the names that are being spoken about. I'd be surprised if they traded any of their starting pitching. I mean, they have some that I think people would be interested in, but I think that even the guys that are struggling have enough credibility that you would expect them to rebound next season. So I'd be surprised if they did that. I'm sure the Yankees would love to trade, the Alex Rodriguez's of the world and some of the other pieces. Maybe they could trade
with $100 million in cash attached to it.
Right, basically. I mean, they could do that. But, the thing about the Yankees is that they do have enough money that if they choose to spend it, they could be back in it next year because they could dump some of those guys, absorb the cost that they're losing, and just pick up the next guy. I mean, those things are always a possibility for them. Starlin Castro, for example, that's a guy they could trade. So let's say Castro, Beltran, and Chapman are probably the 3 most tradable commodities they have.
But you're not trading the bullpen away.
I said Chapman, right?
Okay.
They've got they're not going to trade Betances because he's controllable and he's
sure.
Still, while he's not what he was the first year, he's certainly in the upper echelon. Andrew Miller is very effective, and they still have him for another couple of years. Chapman is the most reasonable person on the staff to trade. And you've got to remember, they made some deals with some other successful bullpen pieces in the offseason to get some other players they had. So if they break up all 3 of them, or 2 of the 3, then they're starting over from scratch in the back end of the bullpen next year, and I don't think that's a situation they want to be in. That is relatively solved with 2 of the 3 in hand next season, allowing them to concentrate on some other things they need to work on. I'd be surprised if they made the decision to do that. If the compromise with the ownership is we're going to move what we can, but we're not going to completely break up what does work on this team.
Yeah, I don't know that tweaking's really the answer there. For me, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
I don't think they're close, quite frankly.
No, I think their pitching is close. I think that the offense and the positional players are so old and fragile and expensive that it's going to be hard to replace them. But you get what you can get when the opportunity presents itself. I think that's certainly. I'd rather have more pieces that I need to figure out how to work in than less. Let's put it that way.
Well, it's going to be interesting offseason too for a lot of clubs because they're not going to be a whole bunch of free agents out there, right? So trades and that's going to be more the flavor of the offseason from what I can tell.
It's been a little while since I've looked at the list of free agents for this coming off season. I remember thinking it wasn't particularly impressive. I think 18 is the year where Harper and Machado and the like. I mean, that's the next really big year in free agency. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the next time teams are going to prepare to spend a ton of money. So you're either in one of 3 positions. You're either trying to load up because you are in contention, you are a contender, and you're trying to win this year. You're trying to shed some salary if you're somewhere in the middle like the Yankees so that you can in theory, have a chance whether you do logistically or not next season remains to be seen, or you're a team that's young and on the come, and you're trying to just save as much payroll space as you can so that if you decide we're gonna focus on this guy in 2 years and throw all the money that we can at him, and realistically, it'll be the Yankees and the Dodgers and maybe a Texas that will have that kind of money. Washington's shown themselves to be willing to spend that kind of money for the few players that are going to come on the market at that time. But I think if you're probably in one of those 3 positions trying to be realistic about what the future holds for you, at least the immediate future in the next for the stretch run for this year and the next couple of years to come. I think those are the 3 positions you're looking to be in.
Well, with Bautista and Encarnacion hitting the market and Ortiz hitting retirement, there is a reason to believe, and obviously the Red Sox have already gone in with Pomerantz, that it feels like more now or never for Toronto and the Red Sox than it does for the Orioles. But, Alan, I've said this already once today, and I'll say it again. If you give me $1 right now, I would bet it on the Red Sox to win the division.
I would too. I mean, I wish I didn't have to say that, but again, they're in the best. Not because I think that they're demonstrably better than the Orioles, because I don't. I said.
Well, they're going to be better every fifth day if Pomerantz can pitch in the American League.
Well, I have said this to you for a long time. Beware the National League you're coming to the American League, whether it's a positional player or a pitcher. It is a very different circumstance, and it's a particularly different circumstance for a left-handed pitcher coming to pitch in the American League East with the DH, with the green monster behind you. It changes the universe. Just ask David Price how much different it is pitching with the green monster behind you. So, hey, they're better off having him. Don't get me wrong, but the work that you do in the National League does not immediately transfer the same way in the American League. So we'll see, but they are certainly better off for having him. I'm not trying to sell you in any different way. They were not demonstrably better than the Orioles, with the exception being that their farm system is deep enough that they can actually go out and make deals to assess the issues that they have. And that's the reason why you have to look at them now and say they're favored to win, because they've already made 3 moves and they probably can make another 1 or 2. Maybe not huge, but enough to do a couple of things. Remove some pieces that a team like the Orioles might be able to do for themselves, and to address those sort of last little cracks for themselves going forward, just making themselves deeper to address injury or slumps or whatever, mix and match, whatever the case may be. You mentioned Bautista and Encarnacion. I think you're right that this is the year for the Blue Jays to try and do something, because we already know Bautista's not coming back. Although I'll tell you, I think that he's making a dramatic mistake because he's a lot older and there's a lot more speculation about him. I don't think he's going to get the kind of contract he believes he's going to get out there on the market in the offseason. Although it only takes one, and that's always the case, so we'll see. But as much as he's battled injury this year, I think that he's making a mistake. And Encarnacion's an interesting guy. I mean, he's still young enough to get that money. And the Blue Jays, under their new leadership, with Shapiro, has shown that they're not necessarily willing to spend that kind of money. But I'd be surprised if I think they'll probably make the hardcore press for him as opposed to Bautista, because they really do need one of those 2 bats. But yeah, I think this is probably the last go-around for this club the way it's constructed, at least for the next couple of years.
Alan McCallum, our Oriole historian and baseball insider, joining us here on WNST. All right, so for the Orioles on the offensive side, there's nothing that needs to be added here, right? Or am I wrong? I mean, we keep talking about the pitching and the starting pitching. That's very obvious. I think things could not have really worked out much better for the bats and for where the defense is at this point. I mean, hey, Hardy is playing like a guy whose body's together all of a sudden. I mean, Scope looks like an all-star now. I know Machado's cooled off, but he's still, he and Trumbo are having, world-class years. Reimold and Kim have and even Rickard have figured out a way to make this thing work. It's been kind of dreamy from an offensive perspective thus far, 89, 90 games into this.
I think whether they need anything offensively depends a lot on how injured Hyun-Soo Kim's hamstring really is, how long he's going to be out. I think offensively, we talked about it, he offers the dynamic of a player that just gets on base, that just makes things happen that this team does not have. How many times do we see over the course of the weekend, even winning 2 or 3 from Tampa, guys being left at third base with less than 2 out, not being able to drive them in because they could not put the ball in play. I think Kim, and when he's going to be back, will be a big piece. I'll tell you, if there's anything that the Orioles could use, it's a true super utility guy who can actually hit. Ryan Flaherty does a fine job defensively at pretty much every position other than, in my opinion, shortstop. But he can't hit. And, when he gets hot, great. But, to get a Ben Zobrist, who's obviously not going anywhere from in Chicago, or the couple of 2-3 guys that are out there that would fit that bill, a Jed Lowry, for example, who's a nice player to have. If they could find something like that, then I think that would really sort of add a nice little piece for the Orioles. A player off the bench who can hit and get on base, and help augment that lineup of guys that bash and strike out a ton. Maybe you call that a luxury piece. They obviously need to concentrate more on the starting pitching, but from an offensive standpoint, if there's anything that they could use, I'd probably say it was that.
Hey, man, it's good to be having some first-place Oriole conversation at this point, Alan. I've known you a long time. We haven't had a whole lot of those after the All-Star break, and good All-Star game last week. You can't beat those warm-ups, right? They were perfect.
Oh, the unis?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you love yourself some San Diego, so that mustard, brown and yellow going together.
Throwback, dude. It was a throwback. It was really classic. Yeah, it was a good All-Star game. I mean, I think it's fascinating how it kind of came and went, and no one around here, it was lost on everyone here that was supposed to be our All-Star game.
It wasn't lost on me the fact that the that the American League was the home team in a National League park, and that the DH was in play. Certainly,
am I the only guy that brought that up? That Angelo screwed up us having the All-Star game last week?
Look, we've had this argument many times. I don't have an issue with Angelos's fight against this particular situation with the Nationals. And quite frankly, I think that the Major League Baseball has gone out of its way to bloody the Orioles' nose in the situation and the circumstances they created by letting a team fester in Canada and then having nowhere else to put them. But ultimately, it's clear. I think there's 3 National League parks in a row that are having the All-Star game. I mean, it's clearly they're trying to send a statement and to the Orioles.
It's more than a statement. It's a $300 million, grappling match here that's gone on for 5 years. It's insane. It's insane.
But, that said, it was a good All-Star game, and, people continue to enjoy the home run hitting contest, and it's always fun to watch guys, pop balls out of the park or hit the Jumbotron deep in left field. But it was the thing that was great about the All-Star game was how many young players were there, and that a new generation really is taking over the game. And for kids growing up, in Baltimore as well as other places, to have 5 representatives for the Orioles in the game, legitimately, for a team that has come a mile away from where they were 5 years ago, it says a lot. And to have Manny, as sort of weak as his at-bats were, swinging at the first pitch and getting out quickly, to have him batting third and be one of the 2 or 3 young, true talents in the game. If you're in Baltimore and you're a fan of baseball, you can't help but be bolstered by that. There's to have Britton and Brock and Wieters and Trumbo having a big year with Trumbo and Manny Machado. I mean, that was cool to see. There's no question about that.
All right, man. Well, first place Orioles head to Yankee Stadium. I've waited like my whole life to say that, right?
We've seen it a couple times now.
Damn, that much. I've been doing this 25 years, Alan. Let me have a little bit of joy, right?
Absolutely, not much in the last 20 years. We've seen it a couple times now in the last few, and for me, as much as the next couple of weeks will say a lot. I mean, it's probably more anything about what they're going to do in terms of the starting rotation and making a push here to solidify what they need to do. And but yeah, going into Yankee Stadium and being the odds-on favorite to come out of a 4-game series successfully is a nice treat. There's no question about that.
All right, man. Well, plenty of baseball to watch as the Orioles head to New York. And, of course, skipping Tanaka, they will get Gausman and Nova. Game 2 will be now Worley and Eovaldi, Gallardo and Pineda on Wednesday night. And then Thursday afternoon, great matchup at 1 o'clock with Tillman and Sabathia. You can find me out in the Bay at Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device. Just download the TuneIn Radio app, becoming crystal clear. You can also get the morning newspaper sent to your email inbox each and every morning just to sign up at WNST.net. That's all powered up by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. There's one of those right around the corner from you as well. And last but never least, breaking news as when the Orioles move guys up and back and forth, and Justin Tucker and the Ravens training camp begins next week. That news comes first. Brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard on the WNST text service. That is free of charge, and you can sign up. You can also email me anytime. Complaints, criticism, praise, ideas, concepts, advice. I get it all. Nasty at WNST.net. I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, and anywhere you are. I'm Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Taos in Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.